Peter Singer isn't exactly a household name, but he's kind of a big deal in philosophy. This Australian thinker, now a professor at Princeton, really shook things up back in 1972. That's when he published a paper called Famine, Affluence and Morality. In fact, it's pretty controversial. See, Singer's a utilitarian. That means he believes in doing the most good for the most people. He argues that people in wealthy countries have a moral obligation to help those in poverty. And he's not talking about dropping a few bucks in a collection plate. He means giving until it hurts. This paper, over 50 years old, is still making waves today. It's a cornerstone of what's called effective altruism. Singer's work has been praised and criticized, debated and dissected. But one thing's for sure, it makes you think. Singer's central argument is pretty straightforward. He says that if you're living comfortably in a developed country, you have a moral duty to help those who are struggling to survive. Think of it this way. If you saw a child drowning in a pond, you wouldn't just stand there. You'd jump in and save them, right? Even if it meant getting your clothes wet? Of course you would. It's a no-brainer. Well, Singer argues that being affluent in a world rife with poverty is like standing by that pond, except instead of one child, there are millions suffering. They're dying from preventable diseases, starving from lack of food, and lacking access to clean water. And we, with our comfortable lives and disposable income, have the power to help. Singer's not saying we should all feel guilty for enjoying our lives. He's simply saying that we can't ignore the suffering of others. We have a responsibility to use our privilege for good, to bridge the gap between those who have and those who have not. Now let's get a little philosophical for a minute. Singer's argument hinges on the difference between two types of actions, supererogatory and obligatory. Supererogatory acts are those that are good to do, but not morally required. Think of them as going above and beyond the call of duty, like helping your elderly neighbor carry groceries or donating blood. These are commendable actions, but you're not a bad person if you don't do them. Obligatory acts, on the other hand, are things you are morally required to do. These are the non-negotiables of ethics. Things like not stealing, not killing, and keeping your promises. Failing to do these things makes you, well, kind of a jerk. He argues that for those of us living in affluence, donating to alleviate suffering isn't supererogatory, it's obligatory. It's not just a nice thing to do, it's a moral imperative. Just like we have a duty not to harm others, we have a duty to help those in need. So why does Singer believe that giving to charity is a moral obligation, not just a nice thing to do? Well, it all comes down to his utilitarian worldview. Remember, utilitarianism is all about maximizing happiness and minimizing suffering, and in a world where preventable suffering is rampant, simply not doing harm isn't enough. We must actively work to alleviate it. Singer argues that the amount of suffering we can prevent with even a small donation far outweighs the minor sacrifices we make by giving up some luxuries. Think about it, that $20 you spend on takeout could provide a week's worth of meals for a family in need. That new pair of shoes you don't really need could provide life-saving medical treatment for a child. To Singer, the choice is clear. Our moral obligation lies in choosing to alleviate suffering over indulging in unnecessary luxuries. It's about shifting our priorities from ourselves to those in greater need. This doesn't mean we all have to become ascetics, living in poverty and donating every penny we earn. But it does mean we need to be mindful of our spending and recognize that our wealth comes with a responsibility to help those less fortunate. Okay, let's break down Singer's argument into digestible chunks. He lays it out like a logical proof, kind of like a philosophical equation. Premise 1, if you can prevent something really bad from happening without sacrificing anything morally significant, you should totally do it. This is like the foundation of his whole argument. Premise 2, starvation, disease and poverty. Yeah, those are definitely really bad things, like no one's arguing with this point. Premise 3, the stuff we spend money on that we don't really need. Those fancy lattes, designer clothes, the latest gadgets, those aren't morally important, they're just, well, stuff. Premise 4, donating to effective charities actually works. It gets food to hungry people, medicine to the sick, and resources to those who need them most. Conclusion. Therefore, if we accept all those premises, it logically follows that we're morally obligated to donate the money we'd spend on non-essential stuff to help those in need. See? It's like a philosophical puzzle, and once you put the pieces together, it's hard to argue with the logic. Singer's argument isn't just some abstract philosophical exercise, it has real-world implications for how we live our lives. It challenges us to examine our priorities, our spending habits, and our very definition of a moral life. If we accept Singer's premises, it means that many of us are falling short of our moral obligations. It means that our comfortable lives, our casual consumerism come at a cost measured in human suffering that we have the power to alleviate. This isn't about guilt-tripping anyone. It's about recognizing the power we have to make a difference. It's about understanding that even small acts of giving can have a ripple effect, improving the lives of others and creating a more just and compassionate world. Peter Singer might not be everyone's cup of tea. His ideas can be provocative, even uncomfortable. But there's no denying the impact he's had on moral philosophy and the way we think about our responsibilities in a globalized world. His work has sparked countless debates, inspired countless acts of generosity, and challenged us to confront our own privilege and the plight of those less fortunate. He's forced us to ask ourselves tough questions about what it truly means to live a moral life. Famine, Affluence, and Morality is more than just a philosophical paper, it's a call to action. A reminder that we have the power to make the world a better place. One act of compassion, one donation, one life-saving intervention at a time. It's a legacy that continues to inspire and challenge us to live up to our full moral potential.